Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Full Court Press. I am your host, Drew Duncan. Do not forget that Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan 83. Additionally, you can find me on YouTube. Simply look for Drew Duncan. And, of course, the Full Court Press is on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. And don't forget that you can listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts. Simply tell your device to play the Full Court Press by Drew Duncan, i.e. iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Spotify, Google Podcasts. There, man. Holy War. First time that these two football teams, Utah and BYU, have ever played each other in an opening season game. Overall, a pretty good look from Utah last night. Look, it was kind of one of those where Utah is probably the better football team for the most part, and they're working out some kinks. When I see the Utah Utes, I see a football team, though, that is going to be their success, I should say, will be heavily predicated on their ability to run the football. That they remind me of a top 15 football team last night. Not necessarily, okay? I'm not sure that from the quarterback play that they're going to get enough in the passing game to be able to beat some football teams that you'll need to beat in the Pac-12 that are better at scoring, i.e. Oregon, for instance. All right, you're going to have to put up more points on the board because defensively, overall, I think they're a solid football team, right? They had 2 pick sixes that went for touchdowns. And ultimately, for me, that was the primary decider in the football game other than their running back, Zach Moss, who is just a freak of nature. I could describe how this guy can be finessed or have finesse-type moves, even though he is an absolute beast, right? I could talk to you about the power that he has, the ability to stiff arm, truck defenders, his ability to go sideline to sideline, cut up plays up the middle. I can tell you all that, or I could just tell you I think you probably need to see this kid play for real in order to fully grasp exactly what it is that I'm telling you about Zach Moss. Legitimately, Zach Moss could be in Heisman contention before the year is over. I mean, that's how good he is. To give you the kind of case in point on Zach Moss, going into the fourth quarter, right, Utah hadn't even amassed 300 yards of offense, and Zach Moss had accounted for, 125 yards, somewhere in that neighborhood on the ground. And then he had another 7 in receiving. Not exactly a mind blower there. But the point of the matter is he basically had 130 yards, nearly half of what Utah's total offense was. Now that's saying something. It's also saying something about their defense and their ball control. Look, in the third quarter, Utah possessed the football for a shade over 12 minutes of a 15-minute quarter. Now, that is old school football, and I love watching it. I really do. You know who they kind of reminded me of in a lot of ways was that Nebraska football team that was led by Tommy Frazier when they ran all over the Florida Gators back in the 90s, right? They kind of reminded me of that. Are they as prolific on offense? Can they score as many points? I don't think so. But in terms of stylistically, we're looking at basically the same football team. Tommy Frazier wasn't known to be a prolific passer. I don't think Utah's quarterback is going to be known for that, but he is efficient, doesn't turn the football over a whole hell of a lot. Accurate, kind of takes what the defense gives him. He's a little jumpy back there in the pocket. To me, when I watch him, I'm seeing a guy who's kind of like a Mike Vick. The first guy isn't open, go and run, but also by the same token, when Utah did call pass plays, I mean, a lot of times you've got 2 guys out on a route. So if 1 or 2, if first option isn't open, second option probably not either, to his credit. Not a whole lot of spread formation looks from the Utah Utes, but I think for me that's coaching, right? You understand the strength of your football team. You play into it. You know what's best for them. And defensively, this team held up. Special teams, I think Utah's going to have some things that they want to work out. Obviously, with field goal kicking, they did miss the extra point after the first interception at the end of the first half that ultimately gave them a 9-3 lead. Then, of course, there was a missed field goal in there, and that's probably why they elected to not kick a field goal when they had the football on, the 25-yard line, and they got stopped on that 4th and short play instead of kicking a field goal, sensing that maybe the kicking game is not going to win us this football game. So special teams is somewhere where Utah is going to have to improve as the season progresses. Do I think they need to have a better passing attack in order to win football games? Absolutely, yes, I do. Absolutely, yes, I do. Because, as I've talked about before, the name of the game ultimately is score more than the other guy. But if you can hold football teams the way that they did, if you can control the clock, if you can slow a team down like in Oregon, then the best case scenario for Utah is ball control and good defense, which can win you a lot of football games. Look, I love seeing old school football. But at some point, you do have to have some sort of ability to stretch the defense, right? People talked about Rudy Johnson not being there at Georgia Tech for the first time in 10 years and all that, how they did in the running game. One of the things that was kind of left out was in some of the more successful seasons, they would often lead the NCAA in pass plays of 50 yards or more because of the way that option sucked in defenses, and ultimately somebody was just going to be left alone basically to score a touchdown. Could we see something similar with Utah? Probably not, but I think that they could use that running game with Moss to open up something so that way they can at least take a shot downfield every few plays and say, you know what? We're going to make you remember that we will try to throw it down the football field. Look, BYU had a couple of chances in this football game. It was the defense for Utah that stepped up. I'm not going to say that it was horrendous football by BYU. I just feel like when all is said and done, when we look back on this football game to start the season and as it progresses for Utah, and the case in point for that is combined total, a 20 points scored by Utah off of turnovers. And I think any coach will take that. Guys, I am Drew Duncan, host of the Full Court Press. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan 83. Additionally, you can find me on YouTube. Simply look for Drew Duncan. The Full Court Press is on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. And don't forget, you can always listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts. Simply tell your device to play the Full Court Press by Drew Duncan.